Imagine working very hard after a long day at school trying to serve tables and do your job correct just to not get tipped. Everyone's work should be paid, especially when servers try their best to meet their customer standards. Even though servers used to not get tipped, now it is different. There's people who pay their rent or feed their families with the money we tip them. This leads me to why it should be mandatory in all restaurants for customers to tip servers. Not only would this make the server's work ethics so much better, it would also be a tremendous change for workers, customers, and restaurant owners. The history behind waiters is very interesting and an important subject everyone should hear about. Waiters started off as a service and an extra special touch in hotels and restaurants with no pay. Rich American families imported from Europe would tip servers for them to get better service or special treatment. As time went by, servers began to expect to be tipped. But tipping itself began in England. It was expected that overnight private hosts would tip the servants. Then it began to spread in cafes in London. As centuries passed, it became more common in restaurants, and now many people across the United States depend on these tips to live their lives. Although servers do have a minimum wage of $2.13 in Texas and an average combined of $7.25, which is the minimum wage, usually there are many servers that work in the restaurant, so they have very low amount of hours. This means their paychecks are very low. Keeping the minimum wage for servers at $2.13 an hour is good because there are days where they have very good tipping. These days, the workers have very good energy and overall the clients have even better service. This leads the customers to wanting to come back to the restaurant and the restaurant looks good. On the other hand, there are also days where they get no tipping for their service. It ruins their whole mood and can make them not work as hard for their other tables. Not tipping for someone's time and hard work ruins the mood of how their day goes. This is why, if you're going out to eat, you should be prepared to tip the waiter, and restaurants should be required to have a minimum of 15% added to their customer's check for the servers. High schoolers usually look for a job so they can work after school for their basic needs they need to pay. It is easy for them to get a job at a restaurant as a server because of the hours worked. But after a long day of constant schoolwork, going to your job and not getting tipped for your work is a horrible ending for the day, and it can affect how an individual feels. There are lots of young people trying to make it by starting off and serving at a restaurant. It is a good thing that teenagers start working, but if they do not get the correct payment for their work, this could have long-term effects on them. Not of them not wanting to work in the future and not being motivated to ever get a job again. This is another reason why restaurants should be required to have at least a 15% tip card for everyone who goes and eats and gets time from a server. On the other hand, there are also grown adults who make a living out of tips. This is how they help their families and pay bills. Without us tipping these workers, they have no way of making it in life. My mother used to serve at a restaurant in her local town, and this was how she would pay our house bill and food, but there was days where people would go in and leave no tips, and she would come home and be very disappointed, and we would see her be sad because she had a bad day at her job, and she didn't know how she was going to pay rent. This made me realize that when I go to a restaurant, every waiter has a life and has something at home they're using the money we tip them for. Not only did it affect us financially when my mom did not get good tips or had a bad day at the restaurant, it affected her mentally because she didn't know how she was going to maintain us. In conclusion, not only would requiring to tip servers benefit the workers, it would also benefit the restaurant. Knowing you have a payment guarantee for your work would make the waiters be in good mood and give much better service to the customers. This would lead to customers being happy and wanting to return to a restaurant. In restaurants where it is required to tip, it is shown that they are much more successful. It's a win-win for every way you see it. Servers are important, and every job takes hard work and should be paid with the correct amount of money. Behind every server, there is a person who's trying to make it in life. By requiring tips from customers, restaurants will increase the happiness of workers, customers, and restaurant owners.